She warned him. Not once, but repeatedly, she begged the most powerful king on earth to turn back from the abyss. He refused. And on the final dawn, Queen Mandodari didn't just lose a husband, she watched her entire world turn to ash, exactly as she had foreseen. She stood as the solitary witness to a destruction she had predicted long before the first arrow flew, paralyzed by the tragedy of being the only one with clear eyes in a kingdom of the blind. To understand why her grief was so profound, you must understand who she was. Mandodari was not merely a queen, she was born of magic and majesty. Her father was Mayasura, the great architect of the Asuras, and her mother was Hema, a celestial nymph. She inherited an otherworldly beauty and a mind that instinctively leaned toward wisdom, making her a rare jewel in the demon court. But deep within the mythology, there are whispers of a stranger, more mystical origin found in later texts. Some traditions say she did not begin as a princess, but as a celestial nymph named Madhura, who was a passionate devotee of Lord Shiva. In a fit of jealousy, Shiva's wife Parvati cursed the nymph to live as a frog in a well for 12 long years. It was Lord Shiva himself who softened the curse, promising that her penance would end in a life of royalty. When the 12 years ended, Mayasura found the beautiful maiden crying in the well, adopted her, and named her Mandodari. Her name is often interpreted as soft-bellied, suggesting a gentle nature that stood in stark contrast to the harsh, iron world of the Asuras she was destined to rule. And it was this grace that captured the attention of the most powerful being of his time. Forget the monster you picture today. When Mandodari married him, Ravana was at the height of his power, a master of the Vedas, a genius in 64 arts, and a warrior so fierce that even the gods feared him. He was a king of immense charisma and brilliance, not just a villain. They built Lanka together, a city of wonders that rivaled the heavens, crafted by her father's architectural genius. It was a golden age where they flew in celestial chariots over mountains and heavenly gardens. She gave him powerful sons, the legendary Meghnada, known as Indrajit because he defeated the god Indra, and the valiant Akshay Kumara. She was proud of the scholar and the king she had married. But Mandodari had a gift that was also a curse. While others saw Ravana's glory, she saw the rot beneath the gold. She saw his unstoppable ego. She was the calm center in the storm of his ambition, the only one who could see that their perfect world was sitting on the knife's edge of a great tragedy. She was the voice of dharma, or righteousness, in a court that cared more and more about power. She loved the brilliant king but saw the seeds of a tyrant beginning to sprout. She knew that his arrogance was a slow poison, and she began her long, painful mission of trying to guide him back to the right path. The poison that killed Lanka wasn't war, it was pride. And the final crack in their world, the one act from which there was no return, appeared the day Ravana returned with a prisoner. Ravana, spurred by his sister's lies and his own lust, had committed the one crime that sealed his doom. He had stolen another man's wife. While the court cheered their king's conquest, Mandodari felt a chill in her soul. She knew this wasn't a prize of war, it was a sign of their annihilation. She confronted him immediately, pleading with him to see reason. She told him Rama wasn't just some wandering prince but was an incarnation of cosmic power, and to fight him was to invite destruction. And she knew a secret the rest of the world had forgotten. Why did Ravana not touch Sita? Was it honor? No. Mandodari knew the truth. Years before, in a moment of arrogance, Ravana had assaulted a celestial nymph named Rambha. Rambha's husband had cursed Ravana. If he ever forced himself on an unwilling woman again, his heads would shatter. Mandodari knew this was the real reason he couldn't touch Sita. He was held back not by morality, but by a divine restraining order. She urged him to find happiness with his many other wives and forget this obsession, but he would not listen. Then came the fire. When Rama's messenger, Hanuman, infiltrated Lanka, killed her son Akshay Kumara, and set the city ablaze, the warning turned into a scream. Mandodari saw this not as the act of a mere monkey, but as a direct consequence of Sita's abduction. She stood before Ravana, trembling, and warned him that if the messenger could do this much damage, he could not imagine the power of the master. But Ravana, blinded by pride, refused to listen. He dismissed her advice, sometimes mocking her piety, telling her she didn't understand the ways of kings. She was the Cassandra of Lanka, blessed with wisdom but cursed to be ignored by the one person who held their fate in his hands. The war was not a battle to her, it was a divine sentence being carried out. She stayed in the palace, a prisoner of a foresight, listening to the wind carrying the screams of dying men. First, her son Akshay Kumara. Then, the mighty Atikaya. And then, the deepest wound, the death of Meghnada, her firstborn, the peerless Indrajit. There is a harrowing story in later versions about her final humiliation. Desperate for victory, Ravana started a sacred fire ritual to make himself invincible. To stop him, Rama's forces led by Angada stormed the palace and dragged Mandodari into the court by her hair. As she was being humiliated, she cried out to her husband, "Look at me. And think about what Rama is doing for his wife." The taunt worked. Enraged, Ravana abandoned the ritual to attack Angada, and his chance at invincibility was lost. This moment captures her tragic position. Even her own violation became a weapon in a war she knew was unjust. When the final silence fell, Mandodari rushed to the battlefield and found him lifeless. Her lament is one of the most moving moments in the epic. She gazed at his face and didn't just cry, she analyzed his fall. She looked at his 10 heads and said, "You conquered the 3 worlds, but you were defeated because you could not conquer your own senses." She identified the abduction of Sita as the sole cause of his ruin. In some regional tellings, like the Bengali Ramayana, her grief turns into a curse. Mandodari, trembling with loss, returns Sita to Rama but utters a prophecy born of her pain. She declares that because she was left to weep for her husband, Rama too would lose Sita and see his joy snatched away. It is a deeply human moment where the grieving queen ensures her pain echoes through history. But the story ends with duty. To bring stability to the broken kingdom, Mandodari married Vibhishan, the new king, an act of statesmanship to save her people. Today, she is honored as one of the Panchakanya, the 5 holy maidens whose names wash away sin. History remembers Ravana's roar, but the Ramayana whispers of the queen who saw the flames coming and tried, in vain, to save him from himself. If you want to uncover more lost stories, make sure you subscribe.